So welcome back, or welcome to Tara Institute. So, as I mentioned last week, our translator Samdup Sering is away in India at the moment, so Geshe Doga has asked me to do these two Wednesday nights. And so the Wednesday nights are now being called sort of heart advice, so not that I'm giving you heart advice, but I have heard over many years a lot of heart advice, and I'm hoping to share with you some of the things that I feel are important for myself that I try to practice as much as I can. So the starting point that I talked about last week was I want to be happy, I want to be free from suffering. And so we can then think in a way, I, who actually lacks full happiness, wants to be happy, and I, who actually suffers, wants to be free from suffering. So, this is a very self-evident experience. This is what really motivates all of our life, is this wish to find some joy, some happiness, some peace, some calm in life. So I think it's worth emphasizing that to yourself, that you legitimately want happiness and want to be free from suffering. And I think it's beneficial to actually view this as an innate right, a right to have happiness and to be free from suffering. So we can look and we can see that there's physical happiness, the comfort for my body, happiness, good health, warmth, cool, food, water, tactile sensations, so there's a whole collection of what we can call physical happiness. And then we can also recognize that we have mental happiness. And of the two, for us it's quite clear that physical happiness is sort of quite easily demonstrated to us. If I'm hungry, I eat food, that I then have the happiness of food. I have the happiness of my hunger being overcome. If I'm cold, I get warmth. If I'm hot, I can get cold. And so I can see that physical happiness very clearly. And I can also see the cause and effect relationship, again, very clearly. It's very accessible to us that hungry, eat food, hunger is dissipated. So we can see that cause and effect very clearly. But to understand the cause and effect operation in our thinking and in our emotions and in our experience is very difficult for us to see. And if we suddenly feel unhappy, or we suddenly feel down, depressed, or all of a sudden we feel highly elated or something, it can actually be very difficult for us to see the cause and effect circumstance in our mind, in our thinking. So the consequence of that is that we go for the easy option, so that we 100% focus on the material and the physical happiness, because we can see that if I work hard, get money, get a house, get comfort, can go places, can eat good food, have a nice companion, have physical contact, have good clothes, warmth, massages, perfume, everything. You can see that is a very clear-cut cause and effect. And out of that, I'll have physical happiness. So the fault that then happens is that we 100% engage in that as our activity. And we, to a large degree, we ignore the cultivation of mental happiness, because it's unclear to us what the causes are. So we sort of then maybe work our whole lives, so we have an assumption that if I can see these causes for happiness, and so then I'll have this big collection of causes for happiness, and my mental happiness will just happen automatically because I've put in all this effort. I've got wealth, I've got a nice house, a car, a job, a career, fame, respect, dignity in the community, friends, companions, clean streets, green trees, nice gardens. And so we have this assumption that my mental happiness will just follow. Okay, but we haven't actually addressed the issues of what are the real causes for our mental happiness. And we sort of live in hope. We live in hope that by creating the physical good conditions, that our mental happiness will just arise by itself, And that's, our experience tells us that's not the case. So I spoke last week about the idea that our interaction with the world is, it's not direct. We don't have a direct experience of the world. Instead, our observations or our experience of the world come through our 5 senses, and then through our awareness of the senses. So we can see that this is a fairly separated sort of condition, that there's, let's say there's the external world, and then I'm interacting that with my senses, and then my awareness is sort of interacting with my senses, and then my conceptuality and habituation and fantasizing and projection and all that are getting in the way. And so I'm ending up with an experience which, if we start to look at it, we can see that that experience is maybe not 100% valid in relation to the world. So that's the area where we can practice. That's the area where we can start to really examine this situation of our awareness of the world. So extending that idea, we might start to see that our prejudices, our strong emotions, our prejudices, our attitudes can alter the way we see somebody or something. We might come to the point where we accept that if in the morning I'm happy with my partner and cheery goodbye, so pleasant, this sort of thing. Then you go to work, you have a difficult day at work and various challenges and circumstances. Maybe you've got angry during the time, some other resentments have come up. And so when you go home, there's an exhaustion in your mind, a tendency to be angry, some resentment, annoyance. And so you carry that with you into your home. And suddenly you sort of realise that your perception of your partner is now quite different. That everything he or she says is annoying, and everything that he or she does is really annoying and objectionable. But we can sort of accept that, this is because I'm tired and exhausted, I'm angry, and so my experience then is contaminated by that anger or that annoyance, resentment, and so we can sort of accept that. But the point I want to talk about here is actually the relationship between this awareness, my awareness, and the object. So we can say that our awareness is this union of the object and then the mind holding the object. So the awareness of the object and the object itself. And so if if I'm angry and there's my enemy has walked into the room, I can objectively describe the characteristics of my enemy. I can say, they're really harmful, they're unattractive, they're disturbing, they're abusive, so we can list a whole lot of attributes that we are saying are identifiers of this enemy. They're the actual characteristics or the attributes of the enemy. They did this to me, they said this, they did that, they stole my car, they did the thing, they took my job, they ruined my life, whatever. And so we can identify the enemy as actually having these attributes. They're unattractive. In fact, this person is unworthy of having any happiness. This person is unworthy of being free from suffering. If you actually start to look at the way you apprehend the enemy or this annoying person, we even have this sort of mentality, they're so bad, they're unworthy of having happiness. They're unworthy, if they've got problems in their life, they are unworthy of being free of those problems. We can see that. We can see that in our perception, and we actually see it as a characteristic of this enemy. We see that. We see those attributes. That's the negativity that we see as being the enemy. So we can analyse this in our own behaviour. We can analyse this in our own life, how we perceive somebody that is really annoying us. And it's okay to admit that you think that way, because it's only when you really see with honest eyes, you see the way your mind works. I believe it's only then that you can start to make a real effort to change that. So similarly, the pure and perfect source of my happiness walks in the room. Somebody whose beauty is undescribable. Their pleasantness, their devotion to me, their whatever, all these sort of imagined things, indescribably attractive and desirable, right? Again, we're putting it as attributes of the object, of the person. That, in fact, my whole happiness is wrapped up in them. They are the creators of my complete happiness. The force of attachment can do create this sort of illusion of they are the creator of my complete happiness. And so in what I'm trying to describe here is that for us, it looks like these are the actual attributes or the qualities of the object itself. And so normally we sort of think the enemy walks in the room, and so the enemy, due to their qualities, their particular qualities, mandates that I experience anger. It dictates to me that I experience anger. And then when the attractive object comes in the room, we behave, or we think that the attractive object is mandating my attachment to them, mandating my lust, my desire to them, dictating. The object itself is dictating to my apprehension that I have lust, that I have desire. Okay? So we've got these two sort of scenarios, and I think we can understand both of them. We can see that this model of the object dictating my experience. We can see that. We experience that in the traffic. In the traffic, you know, some sort of circumstances arise and my apprehension is that this person hates me. You know, they're out to get me. They're out to ruin my day, to destroy my happiness, to cut me off, to humiliate me in the traffic, to just, they've set out to disturb me, and so I perceive them as an enemy, you know. And similarly, on the desire front or the jealous front. So in regards to somebody that we are jealous of, you know, somebody has some success or achieves some position or some win, you know, they win, got a new job or they promotion, you know, whatever, new dress, whatever it is. So technically they have this, they've achieved this sort of additional quality. But in my mind, my feeling is they are not worthy of that success. They are not entitled to be that beautiful. They're not entitled to have that position. They're not entitled for that job, that status, that fame, those friendships. They're not entitled to that relationship. They're not entitled to that position, shoes, car, whatever. And so in my mind, my feeling is that they are not worthy of that success, and hence I experience jealousy. So what I'm trying to describe here is there's this odd sort of connection between me and my emotions and my sort of various, you know, delusions, afflictions, you know, anger, lust, attachment, pride, arrogance. You know, these are the things that I'm experiencing. And then there's the object and these various characteristics, harmful, you know, unbelievably beautiful, attractive, the true source of all my happiness, the true source of all my suffering, the true source of all my loss and humiliation, you know, the enemy. We see them like this. So there's these characteristics of the object and the characteristics of my mind apprehending the object. And the point that I'm really trying to make here is that these two things are so interdependently linked. You know, they are, one is due to the other and the other is due to the one. And it's hard for us to actually see which comes first. So in a way, there's two approaches to finding, you know, if I want to be happy, so I want to be free of these sufferings. I want to be free of these sufferings, this torment of anger or jealousy or arrogance. I want to be free of that. So there's sort of like two approaches. I can change my attitudes or I can change the object. And so there are a lot of practices where we actually change the object. And so many of the techniques in Buddhism are to do with changing the object. And so some of them are as simple as thinking, I want happiness, I want to be free from suffering. Others are exactly the same. They want happiness, they want to be free from suffering. Because if we think about it, the mind of anger does not consider that that person has any entitlement to happiness or has any entitlement to be free of difficulties and suffering in their life. You know, the mind of anger is one that actually has the apprehension that this person is not worthy to be happy. This person is not worthy to be free of suffering. So when we talk about changing the object, we can start from this point of view that I want happiness, I want to be free from suffering. Others are exactly the same. And if we really take that on board, if we really take it on board that this person wants happiness, this person wants to be free from suffering, you can see that there's an immediate contradiction to my thought of anger, which is saying this person is unworthy to be happy. You know, this person is unworthy to be free from suffering. And so if we embrace that thought that this person, my enemy, they want happiness, they want to be free from suffering. So in that moment, we have transformed the object from somebody who is unworthy of happiness to actually being a person who is entitled to happiness. Okay? So the way I'm trying to present this is actually a transformation of the object. It's not just a transformation of your attitude, it's a transformation of the object that you are holding with your mind. And similarly, you know, in Buddhism there's a lot of talk about trying to see all beings as kind as your mother. And even to then sort of create a logic where you see them as being your kind mother, you know, to try to see other beings as being your kind mother, you know, in essence, that they are your kind mothers. And so we have this phrase, motherly sentient beings, you know, this seeing this aspect of them being as kind as your mother and being your kind mother as well. So again, this is a change of the object. You know, it's a change of the object. Instead of being some distant person, some enemy, some person that you're jealous of, we're changing the object instead to be a person to whom we feel a great sense of gratitude and a great sense of respect that they are our kind mother. So this is a transformation of the object. And I think it's a good way to understand this, that we sort of have these two different things. So the consequence of changing the object is that my perception, and hence my emotion, my conception of that person is then changed because I'm holding a different object. So the real key here is to understand that whichever way I perceive somebody, whatever way I perceive somebody, that object that I perceive is like a creation of my own apprehension. You know, it's not an absolute truth. It's not like a standalone reality that I am just perceiving the way it is. You know, that's not the case. So to see how with a single person we can transform them in the way we are apprehending them from being an enemy who, for instance, we think is unworthy of any happiness, unworthy of being free from suffering. In fact, we want to see them humiliated, have suffering in their life, to have harm. We want that, you know. But that same person, we can change the object, change the way that we apprehend that person. So it's not just our apprehension that changes, it's actually the way we see the object. The object itself changes. And I think that's a very liberating thing, because we get hooked up into thinking that a person is this sort of fixed identity, and so we then treat them as some sort of permanent fixed identity, which we have actually fabricated at some point. We've exaggerated, we've embellished, we've taken attributes of that person and completely ignored them. And then we've taken other attributes of that person and completely exaggerated them. And then we're thinking that is the person. But it's actually our apprehension is faulty. And so from this process, if we start thinking about this, we should become suspicious of our apprehension. You know, if we find somebody that we really hate, we should be suspicious. We should automatically say, I can guarantee you, Damien, that apprehension is wrong. You know, we should sort of say that to ourselves. I can guarantee you, Damien, that your apprehension of that person as being the true perfect source of happiness for you is wrong. You know, we should be apprehensive. We should have the suspicion that I am wrong. You know, very important. But to see how, you know, we have this certainty that the object, the person, is exactly what this, you know, we think they're exactly this. They're my enemy. They're my true friend. They're the one that I'm jealous of or whatever. But to try to come to understand how that has got faulty perception written all over it. So the more we think like this, the more we think like this, and like I said last week, you know, we need a fair dose of courage to face the way that we are perceiving others. You know, to see the interplay between my habituations, my habitual lust, my habitual attachment, my habitual anger, my habitual jealousy, arrogance, pride, miserliness, etc. You know, the influence of my habituations in the way that I then perceive others. You know, and I think it takes some degree of courage to actually face up to the way that you are in reality perceiving others. Okay, so, but the point of this whole description of the way the mind works and the object that the mind holds and this process, and then fully accepting that I want happiness and I want to be free from suffering. So part of the consequence of all this is the recognition that you are entirely responsible for freeing yourself from this situation. And as the Buddha said, you know, you are your own protector. Who else can be your protector? And so the more we understand about the working of the mind, we can see that nobody can help me. You know, this comes down to me. If I don't do it, there's nobody else can do it. There's nobody else can actually free me from the suffering, can free me from the lack of happiness, you know, which is the product of my own thinking. So the point to come to is this really embracing of self-responsibility, you know, a total self-responsibility. You know, when we see the way the mind works, we can start to see that, you know, nobody else is going to fix this except for me. You know, for me, there's only one person can fix this, and that is me. You know, I created it. I'm creating this suffering. I can free myself from this suffering. And so the really good news here is that the law of cause and effect about the things that we encounter in life, the good news is I'm responsible for that as well. Because if I wasn't responsible for that, we would have a massive problem. So the good news about karma, or the action, the law of cause and effect, is that I am responsible for that as well. And because of that, then the possibility is open to me to both change the way I think, but also to change what I experience, how I experience it, and I can move forward from this point and protect myself in the future, create a better environment, a better situation for myself, a better life for myself. Because these two things come together. One is my ability to control my own mind, but then through my actions, I can then also shape my own experience of how I will experience the world through cause and effect. And so I am in control of that as well. At the moment I'm not in control of it because I'm not in control of my mind. And so I create a whole lot of actions through anger, jealousy, attachment, etc., which actually then create my own future suffering. And so the suffering that I'm experiencing at the moment has been created by me in the past through my mind being uncontrolled and engaging in actions that have come from anger or have come from attachment, desire, ignorance, jealousy, miserliness, arrogance, etc. So this idea of self-responsibility. And so the more that we can investigate, if we start to look at karma, and so from action, Geshe Doga advised me a while ago not to use the word karma, but to use the word action. So action, this idea that when I act, that there is a consequence from that action. So action has got this immediate action, and then it's got a sort of like a reflection in the future, which is part of the action itself, but it's the ripening part of the action. And so in the future, there is a consequence for me which is related to the action that I am doing right now. So this idea of action having a causal aspect and a resultant aspect that spans time. So action. From my action, I am creating consequences, and to fully accept what those consequences are. So we often think that we can act with, like I said last week, that we can start to think, everything's just created by my mind, and so it doesn't matter if I do this or do that because it's just all mental, or we have these sort of theories. So this is completely incorrect. And if we're not careful, we think we can act with impunity, that there are no consequences from our actions. Again, this is not correct. And so it's worth our while to study cause and effect, to really understand what cause and effect means. And so out of then the sense of self-responsibility, we don't necessarily have to fully understand everything. And so what the Buddha has done for us, and really if you look around, every other major religion has also done the same thing. They have tried to break it down into simple instructions for us, simple practices, not killing, lying, stealing, harsh speech, divisive speech, covetousness. These are very common between all of the major religions, that if we observe those sort of basic ethics of behaviour, then they will act as a protection for me, so that I can, even if I don't understand cause and effect, the kindness of the Buddha and of Jesus and of all the religious traditions, that they have said, if you observe these things, this will act as a protection for you in the future. So Buddhism is exactly the same. If we observe the rejection of non-virtue, the deliberately not killing, deliberately not stealing, deliberately not engaging in sexual misconduct, deliberately not lying, not divisive speech, not harsh speech, deliberately, that sort of like with a mentality of deliberately avoiding it, then that acts as a protection for us, and it can enable us to have a happy future, even if we don't understand all of the different ins and outs of cause and effect. So to embrace that idea as an extension of your sense of self-responsibility. So in the books and all that, there's a sequence of things, and they always start with impermanence. And I don't particularly think much about impermanence, whether rightly or wrongly, but I'm going to mention it. And so the idea that we better get cracking because time's running out, the sort of gross impermanence of this life, that time is running out, and it's running out at a rate that we don't even comprehend the way it's running out, and that if we don't get cracking pretty soon, we're going to have a big problem when the time of death comes. So I'll mention it, impermanence, for us to think about impermanence as a way to motivate us to engage in doing something positive for ourselves. So again, last week I talked about the importance of having self-awareness. So, we don't even know that we're harming somebody. Often we do it so by habit, so easily by habit. So we're abusive, we're dismissive, we are resentful, whatever, and we're very, very much not even aware that we're doing these things. So, as I mentioned last week, this quality of self-awareness, of mindfulness is so important that we can start to have a window open into our behaviour, into our experience, so that we can actually see the way that I can see the way that I am thinking, that I can see a pride in me, or I can see an arrogance, I can see anger, I can see attachment, to actually see it and identify it. So to be able to do that then allows us to bring in an antidote, to bring in a countermeasure, something that will overcome my anger, something will overcome my lust or my desire, something that will overcome my pride. And so, but to apply any of those measures, I have to be aware. I have to be self-aware. It's such a critical factor, to examine your own mind. It is so critical to be able to see your own mind, to see what you're thinking, what your attitudes are, to understand that part of this equation. So, and that mindfulness, we can use it both to look at my experience, but also to look at it as to how I am comprehending the other person, how it is that I am actually viewing the other person. So mindfulness is also needed in that case to understand that I am seeing this person as really undesirable, really unattractive, unworthy of happiness, unworthy of being freed from their suffering. To actually see that apprehension. And so for that we need this quality of mindfulness. And the mindfulness is mainly generated through meditation. So we'll do some simple breathing meditation, but to understand that I'm doing the breathing meditation in order to generate this self-awareness, this mindfulness. Not just in the 3 minutes or whatever of the meditation, but that I'm trying to create this quality within myself that I can use it 24/7 to enable me to then change my perception, change the object, develop some causes for my future happiness and my future freedom from suffering, and right in that moment to be able to have some peace and happiness, calmness and joy in that moment as well. So we'll just do a breathing meditation. Sit comfortably. And so we follow a little sequence. Become aware of your thinking. Let all of the various thoughts go. You know, tomorrow, yesterday, outside of here, different fantasies, daydreaming. Let all of those different thoughts go and bring your mind more and more inside yourself, letting all of the thoughts drop away. Right down to like where there's no thought. And then you turn your attention onto the breath. So, and ideally to put your attention onto the awareness of the breath, just coming in and going out. Just that sort of sensation, the mental sensation, coming in, going out. The breathing as a mental awareness, coming in, going out. And hold your attention on that absolutely 100% for the next few minutes. Relax your concentration a little bit and just examine what happened in your meditation. Just reflect on the last few minutes, what was, happening in your meditation. And then we'll just repeat exactly the same meditation. If you found that you were sleepy or daydreaming, just strengthen your resolve to focus on the breath 100%. completely keep the focus just on the breath. Don't think about your work or your day or tomorrow or anything. Just focus on the breath and let all other thoughts subside. So just repeat the meditation for the next 2 minutes or so, focusing on the breath. Once again, just relax your concentration a little bit. And again, examine your meditation. An honest examination. Just check, how did you focus on the breath? And then seeing that any distraction or sleepiness, wavering, other thoughts, see them as that is the problem, the distraction in my mind. I need to overcome these distractions. I need to develop some real focus and power within my own mind. That this is something I really do need. And so let's just once more, just for another couple of minutes, repeat the meditation, and with a strong determination to keep the focus just on the breath. And just relax your concentration, bring your mind back to the room. So we've got some time now for any questions or discussions or anything anybody would like to say. Sorry?
How do you make it more realistic? Because you put this object and you put this completely delusional label on it. How do you wipe that away and see that object more realistic?
So the question is about having an object of attraction and... yeah, so, well, the methods are different for whether it's aversion or attraction. So let's say we start with the object of attraction, and what is the method to sort of deal with it. So how would you identify the difference between an object of attraction and an object of aversion? Yeah, so wanting it to be close to you. So why would you want it close to you? No, but at this point we don't see it as incorrect. So let's first of all, this is why I'm encouraging everybody to actually see how we view it. No, we're not talking about the not part yet. We're talking about the illusory part. So first of all is understand your illusion. Understand like the object of attraction. I said before, there's this belief that it's perfect in every aspect. Perfect in every aspect. That it's the complete and true source of happiness for me if I can possess it. So that's the thing to check. Perfect in every aspect. Is that true? So the antidote to attachment is to look at the reality of the object and see the various faults that do exist, and then hold them in your mind, the unattractive aspects of the object that do exist. So holding in your mind the unattractive aspects of the object overcomes the delusional apprehension that the object, the person, is perfect and beautiful in every aspect. But the thing that I'm trying to encourage earlier was, don't jump to the solution before you understand the problem. So to really see the fabricated view of the perfection of the object of attachment. Whether it's a pair of shoes or a car or a software package or a person or a cosmetic procedure. First of all, see the illusion that you have fabricated, and then it's clear the path to overcome that. See how much what the illusion presents to you. Because I think a lot of us, we hear all these techniques, Buddhist techniques, and we sort of jump to the technique, but we haven't seen the real illusion that we're faced with. And so that we then say, the techniques don't work. They're not very effective. I've tried that, but it's not very effective. And I think part of the problem there is that we don't really understand the illusion that we are fabricating. first. You have to really understand that, whether it's anger or attachment or jealousy or whatever else. Okay, it looks like everybody's had enough. So thank you all very much. Geshe Losang Dorji will be here next week, and then he is teaching an Easter course here, 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So on the sevenfold cause and effect method of generating bodhicitta. So if you're interested in that, you can book through the office. So they're still taking bookings. So it's a good opportunity, 3 days of teaching and discussion and meditation. So